with the dungeon game code. As you can see, there are the few libraries on the top that are required for the game, and some constant variables which will remain constant throughout the code, and an enum which contains the tiles like empty, player, and mobs. Then I have struct for the player which represent the location of player, the health of player, the array of inventory, the count of inventory keeping in count how many items the player has. It's capped at 6. Then it's checked whether the player has armor active or not, and how many hits are left if the armor is active. Then I have initialized the player. Then I have used some important functions for the code, like add inventory, which adds item to the inventory, as you can see. Then use potions add if the player uses the potion in using the further functions, it adds 25% 25 health to the health of the player. Then use armor function is there, which is used to make the player equip the armor if it's in the inventory. Then shift inventory function is used to make the inventory organized, as it shifts the items from last to the first if the first items have been used. Then show inventory is used to show the inventory to the player. Then there is a struct mob which contains the location of mobs, the health, and symbols representing them, as there are quite a few types of mobs like skeleton, goblin, and zombie, as you can see. Also, there is a function string get input which is used further when choosing the item for the inventory. Then the struct for game starts, which has a which which has an array 2D array of for the map containing the maximum size of map. Then mobs, maximum number of mobs that can spawn in the game, and player, as you have seen the struct above. And there are some variables required, and I have initialized the game and generated the map for the game, which is random generated, and generates the map from 3 by 3 to 9 by 9 randomly by taking seed using the seed time library mentioned above. Also the game makes the player spawn anywhere, just taking in account that it's not same with the mob tile. Then it also randomly spawns the mobs in the game, and taking into account different mobs at different levels, as I have mentioned above: goblin, skeleton, and zombie. Then a function draw map is used to draw the map for the game, which has some commands that the player needs to follow so that the player can play the game, like WSD, which is used to move the player, Q for quitting, and N for starting the next level. Also, it represents some UI like player health, the hits left on the armor, and level the player is on. Then this draws the map for the game and also puts the symbols of player, G for goblin, and S skeleton and zombie in the game. Then open inventory is the function that I made above so that player can see the inventory. Is mob checks whether the player and mob are not on the same tile, and also the player doesn't spawn on the tile same as a mob, which is really important. Then move player is used to move the player with the help of WSD keys, as I have mentioned above. Also, it check whether the mob is not on the same tile, or there will be, or the player would not be able to move on the same tile as mob. Then there is the combat logic used for the game. The mob attacks the player when the player is adjacent to the mob. Also, there will be few of the text that we'll be able to see, like if the mob drops some item like the health potion, armor, or mob has killed the player, his armor is deactivated, or the player has killed the mob. Then the main game loop starts, where the actual game will run over and over again. Here are the WASD keys that will check for the movement of player. Q is for quitting the game at any point of time. N is for new level and it's keep in check whether the all the mobs have been killed. If no mobs have been killed or even single mob is left, it will not send the player to the next level. Then I key is to open inventory. U is to use item, as you can see with the index that will be mentioned on the top of the item. Then these are some exceptional exceptions handling for that. As I told you, the all mobs have been killed. That is required for the new level function is here. And finally, we have the int main, which opens the new window for the game, and then game is initialized with small g, and game loop is run or called. So let's run the game. Let's compile it and run it. As you can see, the player has spawned. It kills the mobs when it's adjacent to them. I is for opening the inventory, and as you can see, when I kill the mobs, I dropped few of the items. So let's use them. I have increased the player health for this time so that I can show you all the levels without having to keep adding things to the game. As you can see, the armor is shown, and because I have added the game with extra health, so after using the health potion my health reduces to 200. So let's do it again. So as you can see, there are map is randomly generated and also the number of mobs. When I go adjacent to them, they are killed, and also my health is reduced. If I reduce my health 200 or 250 used in the game, I'll have to use the items to be alive and win the game. As the level increased, the type of mob becomes different. Like there were zombies, uh, zom- zombies will be from the next level, and there were skeletons and goblins in the earlier levels. As the levels increase, the health of the mobs increase and they cause more damage. After the level 8 game ends. Also, if the player presses the Q button, game ends. Thanks a lot.